Is arthritis avoidable, or is it just something we're going to have to get used to as we get older? In fact, there's been several recent studies that suggest that age is not necessarily the determining factor for arthritis, but actually lifestyle choices, like levels of activity, or carrying excessive amounts of body weight over long periods of time that puts a lot of stress and strain on the joints of the knees and hips and low back. Or unresolved sports or work-related injuries that were never properly diagnosed and treated. So now those unresolved injuries not being properly rehabilitated, the joints start to lose their natural range of motion and become stiff and difficult to move. So for example, osteoarthritis of the knee, which is the most common form of arthritis and the most common joint to be affected by arthritis, if damaged and not properly rehabilitated, can start to form things like arthritic bone spurs. The cartilage in the knee can start to break down and deteriorate, and that can lead to meniscus damage and ligament damage within the knee due to a lack of usage and improper function of the knee. So now as you get older, due to a lack of exercise and mobility, you'll start to progressively lose range of motion in the knee, which can lead to chronic stiffness and swelling. You can start to lose strength and flexibility in the muscles that connect to the knee joint due to a lack of normal usage. And you can start to have joint tracking and stability issues, which will make it increasingly difficult to walk. And then this can lead to a constant state of increased inflammation within the joint capsule due to a lack of motion and trapped inflammation within the joint itself. So whether it's your knees, your hips, or the small facet joints in your neck and low back, it's this slow, steady wear and tear on the joints, coupled with increased inflammation trapped within the joint capsule, that will slowly over time start to deteriorate the joint, which then leads to arthritis. Now, although I truly believe arthritis is avoidable, it's very important to start early to reduce or eliminate the risk factors for joint damage. Because it's important to take a lifespan approach to prevention so that you don't end up with things like osteoarthritis. So a place I like to start with most patients is to take a look at the inflammatory agents found within their diets. So things like added sugar in refined foods, or excess salt, which will cause your body to retain water and increase inflammation within the joint capsule. Saturated in trans fats, which have been linked to increased inflammation, and even excessive amounts of red meat and dairy, which can be inflammatory to some people. And then of course the overconsumption of refined carbohydrates found in processed foods, and the overconsumption of alcohol, which has been linked to increased inflammation. And then of course foods and supplements that will help decrease inflammation, like fruit as an example, especially blueberries and goji berries, and a wide variety of vegetables, especially if eaten raw before cooked. And then things like turmeric and glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate. And of course, lastly, increasing water consumption, especially when you exercise, to help flush out the inflammation trapped within your body. And lastly, there was an article in the New York Times, and I'll leave a link in the description below, that quoted a study about the resilience and adaptability of joint cartilage and its response to exercise like running that are commonly associated with arthritis. And the study indicated that runners actually had a lower incidence of osteoarthritis due to the ability of cartilage to respond to repetitive stress and thicken or bulk up to protect the joint. So it's this last point that I find fascinating, that your body does have the ability to adapt and heal itself if you give it the right inputs and you take out the things that are limiting your recovery. So that means starting treatment and therapy early for both new and chronic conditions, and starting and completing the rehabilitation process so you're strengthening muscles and building up joints that will give you the best chance of avoiding arthritis, which can only serve to degrade the quality of your life.